So we're gonna do I'll do a quick leadership update. We'll do a subgroups update. So particularly around for personal functioning engagement. Others are welcome to chime in for the other use cases. If there's anything to report. And then we will go and James Patterson will take us through the USCDI V6 comments review. So that's the agenda for today. Are there any other agenda items we want to cover? All right, not hearing anything. I will go through the leadership update. So, just wanted to give you a quick update on the communication pause. So that is affecting both HL7 and has also affected PACIO as both are funded projects by Health and Human Services. Um, so the HL7 communication pause, there really hasn't been any change there. There's still the limitations on us putting things on Confluence and Jira and GitHub and things like that. We are continuing to work around that as much as we can. The work groups are meeting, and so we are able to at least at least participate in those. But the fact that we can't push to the GitHub means that we're limited on what we can do from an implementation guide standpoint. We are continuing to integrate things that have already been decided on into our local GitHub repositories, and we will continue to do that. And then once the communication pause is lifted, we can then push all that stuff to HL7's GitHub, and that will update the implementation guide. Um, on the Passio side, we are now able to update our GitHub accounts. We've gotten approval to do that, and so we will excuse me, we'll be doing that and updating. We're doing some sample data work. We're taking some of the things we've learned at the Connectathon, particularly around sample data, and we are updating that. And so we'll and putting in new procedures and ways that we're going to do things going forward. So to make that a more scalable thing. But so we'll be doing stuff like that, and we are going to be making updates to the transitions of care implementation guide, which is also under PACIO, the PACIO GitHub. Um, but we are, of course, able now to have our meetings, which is great. And so but we are not able to use Confluence as our means of distributing documents and materials. So we will be doing things through email and perhaps other methods. So please just be patient with us as we go through this. And I'm hopefully that this will be short-lived and we will be able to go back to operations as normal. Any questions on the communication pause? All right. So here are the use cases and timelines. The good news is standardized medication profile has been approved for publication. So the TSC, Technical Steering Committee at HL7, which is the highest level body to approve things at HL7, has approved it. So it's not actually published yet, and it may not be published really until the communication pause has been lifted. But all the things that we need to do to get it to publication have occurred. So it's kind of out of our hands at the moment. Um, so that's great news, and many congratulations to the team for putting that together and getting it through the process. Um, as far as the other things, advanced directives, interoperability, we have been targeting the May ballot. We, it was already kind of a tight timeline, and we missed a couple of weeks being able to meet, and so and it may not even be possible really to do the ballot through the communication pause, but we're thinking that at this point it's likely that may we may target September instead of May, but we're talking about that, and I'll let you know. We'll let you know what happens with that. But May is looking somewhat less likely as we have still quite a few things to go through. And the notice of intent to ballot is this Sunday, the deadline. So we have to be pretty sure that things are going to be ready in order to do that. Transitions of care, we are going to proceed ahead with the May ballot. So we are getting that notice of intent to ballot going. We will be meeting with hopefully patient care tomorrow, and so we should be able to move forward on that. Personal functioning engagement, we are deep in ballot reconciliation. Um, and we have one item left that we are working out with Rob McClure, who requested an in-person uh, consultation on the issue. The issue is the use of the ICF, and it's not a matter of using the ICF. It's just a matter of what um, code system and value set getting pointing in the right place. Um, in the past, we got approval. HL7 got approval to use it, but the code system was not actually in T the HL7 terminology authority. So um, we're going to be talking with him about how to make that happen so that we can do the best thing going forward. Otherwise, we have block vote 3, which has been approved by this body. Then we'll be bringing that to HL7 um, for review. And again, that may be affected also by the communication pause. Um, and then the personal function, I'm sorry, advanced directives. Uh, uh, that's as I said, that's we're going to be discussing as to when we go through that. So I think we're still moving forward in all of these, and so we'll try to move things forward as quickly as we can, given the pause. Any questions on use cases and timelines? All right. Um, so just some upcoming conferences that we've applied for and will be hopefully participating in is the National Academy of Practice annual meeting in Washington, D.C., March 13th to 15th. We have members. If the MITRE is not able to participate, we do have members from the PACIO community that have been working on that, and with many, many thanks to them for doing that. Um, and so they may be able to carry that forward. The American Nursing Informatics Association Annual Conference, which is a combination virtual event and an in-person event in New Orleans. Our poster has been accepted there. And again, we may be able to have folks, if MITRE's not able to go, to have non-MITRE folks be able to attend that. Um, so there is the WEDI HL7 Person-Centered Care for Healthier Communities Forum that was scheduled to happen on April 2nd and 3rd. It was a virtual event that has been postponed. So the date is still to be determined, but we're scheduled to present during the deep dive on standards and accelerators track. So when when an appropriate new time is decided upon that, then I think sure that we will be able to uh, hopefully participate in it at that time. And then there's the AMIA 2025 Clinical Informatics Summit in Anaheim, California. Our poster again was accepted. That's May 20th to the 22nd. And again, um, if MITRE can go, then great. If not, MITRE can't go, then certainly we'll be looking for non-MITRE folks within the community to be able to hopefully represent PACIO at that event. But all of these things are really great opportunities to get the word out on what we're doing with PACIO to really um, groups that really are not heavily involved in the standards development process. And so I think a great way to get the word out as to what we're doing to people who need to understand, I think, more of what's going on in the standards world and what the capabilities are so that they can um, hopefully drive some demand. And, they can go and go to their vendors and say, "Hey, I just saw this really cool thing, and I'd like to be able to have it in my organization to be able to exchange this information." So, to provide that kind of demand um, for the vendors and for the technology communities, that I think is a big advantage. So, and that's it. Any questions? Nancy, for we need co-presenters for Weedy. Sure, I'm sure that would be great. I think one of the points of that particular conference is to show again what can be done, and so I think the more we can show on that, the better. And then yeah, and so thanks, Bob, for Bob was saying that the PACIO project was mentioned several times during the APTA conference. That's great. That's just awesome. So that's the kind of thing we need. We just need, more and more visibility on what we're doing because I think we're doing some great stuff and really impactful stuff. So, and I've heard that all throughout the HL7 work group meeting. They were really impressed with what we did. Um, and so the more we can do that, the better. All right. Uh, anything else? All right. With that, I will hand it over to Jamar to give an update on the PFE.
All right, thanks, Dave. I just want to give everyone a quick update. So we did have the PFE weekly meeting today, very robust discussions about USCDI version 6 draft comments. So some of the things that we discussed were a lot of the same things that we discussed last year that weren't moving forward. So we were really looking at how we could strengthen those comments and improve the likelihood of that being accepted and adopted for USCDI version 6. So some of the things that we talked about were disability status, functional communication measures, nutrition status, and adopting the ICF as an applicable vocabulary standard. In the next meeting, we will likely still be talking about the USCDI version 6 draft comments and developing those. And if we have time, continuing to talk about STU3 and brainstorm there. But that is it. Any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say with STU3, I mean STU2 for personal function engagement, we're I think reaching the end of ballot reconciliation. We've just got that, as I mentioned, that one block vote to get through. And so once we can get through that, then we can start the publication process. So we want to start thinking about what we want to do for STU3. What are still some of the gaps that we want to try to address um, in that particular area of work. So any ideas there would be wonderfully accepted.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. And with that, I will hand it over to, unless, is there anybody else who wants to give a subgroup update? All right, James, the floor is yours for USCD IV6.
Okay. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
One second, I'm going to go right back off mute. Got a little tickle in my throat all of a sudden. So I think this was the point in the meeting that this will be, the rest of the meeting will be talking about USCDI comments. So if you're not interested in that part, you are welcome to jump because it's going to be kind of the remainder of our time. So I'm going to share two documents real quick. I'm going to share a quick intro to the USCDI. Of course, it jumps around on me. So I'll run through this brief little slide deck just to give you the intro to what USCDI is and make sure everybody's on the same page, and then we'll jump into what the comments we have are. So USCDI is kind of the formal definition of data elements that are going to be required at some point by the government to be implemented within some of the health IT systems. It's broken up into data classes and then also the data elements. So each of those things needs to be kind of moved along through this process that we'll be talking about today. As noted, I think, or well, just in case this is newer to you, the data class is really just a group of similar kind of data elements. It's the higher level structure to be able to bin these things together and provide some structure as we go through and approve different data elements. And within the data class, the individual data elements will have definitions and will also have associated vocabularies that are recommended by USCDI. There is a structure within USCDI that basically starts to introduce the data elements early on in the process, early on in the process of their development. So we have these levels that go from 0, which is the most nascent and new, up through level 2, which is well represented and integrated into multiple EHR systems. I'll leave that slide there for a second so you can take a look if you're interested, but it's basically talking about if they're well defined by a standards organization, it's kind of the top level bullet. If they're captured and stored by different EHRs, the next one is if they have been exchanged extensively or just in a test setting for like level 0 and between multiple EHRs in level 2. And then the last one is the applicability across multiple settings. So level 0 being, a very finite set of specialties that we would use the data element versus level 2, which is, broadly applicable across healthcare settings. So typically what happens is data elements start around level 0 if they're really well defined, but just haven't gotten included for some reason up to this point. They could jump in at level 2, but usually there's some regression from the earlier levels to the higher levels. And then once it reaches level 2, it's in essence, ready to become part of USCDI. And it becomes up to ONC or ASTP to decide whether that data element fits their priorities at the current time and will be included. So that's the quick overview. Does anybody have any questions about kind of the structure of how USCDI works and how the data progresses up through the different stages? All right. I will jump over to the actual comments themselves. I've been working with Uba on this. She's been tremendously helpful and has had a lot of input from the PFE side. The one caveat is we have not integrated the comments that she received earlier. I think was it today or yesterday that the PFE went through some of these comments. So this is going to be that original document that PFE was working on earlier. And so there's no need to reiterate the comments that have been provided to Uba already. But we're looking for any other comments from other groups and other use cases that, that haven't been heard yet. Does that make sense for everyone? Going with the normal silences concurrence, we'll press on into this.
Hey, James.
Yeah.
Hi. So I want us to really think seriously about whether or not we want to support promoting the Advanced Directives data class from level 1 to V6. I know we've done so historically, but one would hope we learn a lot with the passage of time. I think seeing the data class as an organizing concept, it's really a human element. There's no enforced reason for data classes to be there except to organize the information for the human brain. When you look at care experience preferences, treatment intervention preferences that are located not under that data class, they're easy enough to find. When you look at the advanced directive observation that is located under advanced directive observations, I want to maintain that thread of being reasonable in the ask. I think the PACIO community carries an incredible amount of clout. So I want to challenge copying forward what we've done year after year so that we don't incur request fatigue on the part of the readers, and kind of look at what exists there right now. I mean, an advanced directive observation, the purpose of it is to enable a pointer or a reference to the actual form. I don't know that we need that data class, at least as a part of our ask for V6. Based on my conversations with CMS and High Tech and others, we need to be really, really parsimonious. And I just don't know that copying forward what we asked for from last time, unless we just didn't get it and it's a deal breaker, I just don't know that that's the right approach to continue to earn, the amount of influence this community has.
Sure. So I think the one distinction here is, it might not have come through well, is that we're really asking for this data element, the advanced directive data element, to be put in, and then it would be housed under the advanced directives data class. So does that change what you were thinking? We're not just asking for the data class by itself.
I don't think we need it. I really don't, because I'm actually giving you a segue to my comments on portable medical order. But when you look at advanced directive observation, that's really a two-part data element. Not only is it the activation aspect of taking a piece of paper and having a clinician review it and vet it. Is it signed? Is it consistent? Have I had a conversation? Do I feel good about it? Okay, if yes, I'm going to put it into the workflow. But it also accommodates a reference or a pointer to the advanced directive document itself. Whether or not we liked it, if advanced directive observation accomplishes what we're looking to do here, I say on the topic of advanced directive, our job is done.
Okay. Do you mind me putting your name associated with that comment?
Oh, you can feel free. I've had about 18 different conversations, so they're going to be they're going to be expecting my name to appear, and I'm sure they'll take a deep drink of coffee and rub their forehead and see what I have to say.
No, I mean,
okay,
this is something we need to hash out internal to PACIO. This isn't something I need to, we need to resolve this before we take it forward to ASTP. So I think the conversation needs to happen. I just don't know exactly how to reconcile that with what our current plans were. Since I'm new to the process, we will figure that out. But I appreciate your input, and we will take that as kind of a recommendation from you, is to not pursue this line of reasoning any further for advanced directive. Does that capture your thoughts properly?
At least for V6. At least for V6. If we can see what V6 bears, and I have a reason for saying all of this, and so it'll give away a little of kind of where I'm at on portable medical order, but at least for V6, I would take a step back on it.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody
else? Go ahead.
Anybody disagree with that?
we'll press on then. For the health status assessment data class, I think we have a couple of different things coming up. Um, the there's a recommendation to remove the current disability status and replace it with disability that would actually be under a different data class, which is the patient demographic information. So this is, in essence, enabling data about someone's personal attributes, the disability that they might have, to be captured versus the status of their disability. Um, I'll let you take a quick look at the rationale. The first part of rationale that I scrolled off the top is just kind of our boilerplate. This is what PACIO is, so it's not too pertinent. I think the last paragraph is kind of one of the big points of um, kind of muddying the water of how this information is collected, and it's kind of one of the critical parts of the rationale of why it should be changed. Does anybody have an issue with, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping track of the chat at the moment. Does anybody have any issues with the way that we are recommending the disability status be changed? So for this group, I'll continue to say silence is concurrence for what we have currently. So unless I have any comments, we'll progress on to the next one. Okay. The next two are in essence just vocabulary additions to specific data elements. So this first one is for um, the functional status and the mental cognitive status, looking to start including the American Speech Hearing Association's functional communication measures. The rationale is just basically giving more detail on why that would be appropriate. Um, and the bottom does indicate, the inclusion of it in the IGs, the PFE IG. Does anybody have any concerns with that or want to change what we're putting forward? Uh, Go ahead and speak up if you want me to hold a little bit longer, but since these are pretty, um, I don't want to say minor changes, but since they're just vocabulary additions, I feel like they're pretty not controversial. The second one here is the same status plus health concerns. And the request is to add the International Classification for Functioning, Disability, and Health as one of the vocabularies that will be included for those particular data elements. Is there any changes that folks would like to see? There is a note over here about, I think at the last meeting, someone asked about including HUDAS as another data or another vocabulary that should be included for those three elements. So the comment as is, does anybody have any additions or any feedback for the current comment? I'll scroll down a little bit.
That was my comment. Sorry,
Okay.
this is Patricia. That was my comment because the HUDAS instrument is based on the ICF. So it is an assessment instrument. So that's why I think, because maybe we had recommended some assessment someplace. And I might be getting confused to where that might be. It might not be here. It may not be appropriate because if we're just recommending this as a terminology, it's fine. The HUDAS would be a specific assessment based on that terminology. So that might be more related if we were recommending how we might assess functional status. We could recommend the HUDAS as an assessment instrument. So it might not be necessarily applicable here.
Um, I'm going to turn to Uba and ask if you have any input or insights into that.
Patricia, do you?
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Dave.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll ask after you're done.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't have any additional insights. The meeting this morning, we focused on on the ICF. And then Patricia, you also, that's, I think when you had brought up the other ICF complementary terminology for observations.
Yeah, I don't know, Patricia, if you wanted to talk about the EG stuff at all
Oh,
to the wider group.
sure. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier in the PFE meeting was that there is a new classification. It is a classification on health interventions that has been developed by WHO over the last 5 years and has now been approved. It is publicly available. It is, and I put the link, I can put the link again in the chat, but it covers a broad range of interventions, diagnostic, surgical, primary care, functional support, rehabilitation, public health, and so forth. So it's a pretty comprehensive and robust classification. It does work with the same foundation as the ICD and the ICF. And it allows for us to kind of work as this like a family of classifications together with ICD focused on diagnosis, ICF focusing on functioning and functional status, and then the ECHI, which is functioning on health interventions based on diagnosis and functional status assessments. And that would, I'm saying that broadly, that would include cognitive status and other types of assessments that we might do related to functioning. So it is something that is available. You can take a look at the website and you can look and browse online to see specific instances of types of procedures or interventions that you might use in your own practice.
Okay. I guess so. I think we'll take this back and take a look and see how to integrate these comments. Just because of vocabulary and assessments might blend in differently and might warrant separate comments so that like one can be progressed through and the other one might not at the same rate. But we'll look and see the best way to integrate these. Does anybody have any concerns or hesitation to including those the HUDAS and the ICHI as additional items we'd like put forward for these data elements?
We might need a little bit need to investigate at least the Ichi stuff a little bit more.
Yeah, I think my big question, because currently we indicate that PACIO on the PFE utilizes these things. So if they're not currently in those structures and not currently kind of put forward as part of the standard, then we'll have to evaluate the best way to push forward on that. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah, I think, that's the Ichi stuff is something, that we can probably look at maybe as part of STU3 that I brought up earlier. So as to whether that would be something that we'd want to add.
Perfect.
But
Thanks for all your input.
looks really cool. So
thank you, Patricia, for your inputs, and we'll continue to keep that as a note as we push forward on some of those data elements.
Sounds good. Thanks, James.
Pushing forward into nutrition status data element. Um, this is an earlier data element, and we believe it's been well enough established that it could be moved to from level 0 to level 2. So it's a more robustly implemented data element. Does anybody have any feedback on this one?
This is Bob, and only the comments that were made earlier this morning. Thanks.
Okay. We'll integrate those as we get towards that point. Pushing forward into the personal communication status, this is requesting the advancement of this data element from level 0 directly into USCDI v6. So full implementation, but renaming it to personal communication versus the status. And again, moving it into patient demographic data class, since it is more of an attribute of the individual at that point, instead of just a status. That was yeah, it's just a status. Again, I'm going to scroll down past the boilerplate so y'all can see the actual content of the recommendation. But this is a critically important bit of information to understand about folks and what the communication needs are. I'll give you a second to read it, but please speak up if you have any comments or feedback. One last note on this is that it is, part of the PFE and is currently contained within one of the value sets. So it's well formed and well established as a necessary data element. Last call for comments, or if you'd like us to wait and let you finish reading, I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, you can speak up and call me back after I move on. Okay. The medical device data class. Device used has the recommendation to progress forward from level 2 into the full implementation within USC IV6. At this point, they have not done that, so it is kind of at the maximum level of what they have criteria for. So we're just continuing to advocate that it be included. Does anybody have any comments or feedback on this? Okay. We'll press forward again. This is where we get to shine a light on some of our successes as our community. The order data class has two different data elements. I think just these two data elements that we'll be talking about, both of which have made some progress into implementation. The nutrition order data element was accepted as a level 2 data element. So ASTP has acknowledged the stability and the robustness of that data element. Our comment starting down here is that we are thanking ASTP for recognizing that importance and reiterating that it should be included in the full V2 in the full USCDI V6. So I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. I was using the words that I should be using for portable medical order. Nutrition order was a new submission and it was immediately accepted at V2. It is not included in USD CDI V6, but it is, there now for folks to start, engaging with and recognizing the importance of for future inclusion in V6. I apologize for the mix-up. I jumped ahead the data element.
Okay. Do you want to You want to talk about the portable medical order data
Yeah.
element?
Well, let me just make sure.
Okay.
One last call for any comments on nutrition order and it making it to level 2. Creeping down and thinking ahead. Okay, now we'll talk about the portable medical order data element, which this is the one that has made it all the way to USCDI v6. This is the new inclusion from our recommendations. Maria, sorry. Did you have
That's
a comment?
okay. You can just call me loud and disruptive. I'm okay. I'll answer to anything.
Just not late for dinner, right?
Yeah. Well, so I've had a number of conversations, and here's the conundrum with the portable medical order data element. There is really not a CDA or fire IG that we can point to with the current description of portable medical order data element as a part of V6. And that is really something we have to be mindful of. The ePulse CDA IG is fraught with errors. It is a model of use intended IG that only provides faulty guidance to a single form instrument. And, our STU2 has not been published. So what seemed to be an amenable place to land with this data element is to suggest, yes, that it be promoted to V6, but that the language behind the description be more representative of what we did with the advanced directive observation. And by that, what I mean is you can't request, a data element representative of structured data unless you've got an implementable IG out there. So let's do this. Let's alter the wording and, Dave, I'll send you the wording that I've been working on with a couple folks from High Tech and a couple of other folks within Fire US Corps, et cetera. I'll send you the wording, but it is similar to what we did. Let me see. It would be information about and reference to a provider authored document, blah, 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 blah. And then just like the advanced directive observation, usage note may include structured or unstructured data. And these are meant to follow a person regardless of when and where such an order might be needed. And then we list some settings. I mean, we've been working on this for about a week now. So the intent is great. Let's just use it as a pointer or a reference to a document. We still get where we want to go. I'm confirming with Brett Marquardt, but I've heard from somebody else on PSC that U.S. Corps will support this methodology. So if U.S. Corps has a pointer or a reference to a document, and let's just call a spade a little bitty shovel, 98% of the documents that are out there right now are unstructured. They're scanned documents if they're not on paper, because like everything else is still on paper. So we still get where we're going. We still have a pointer to a potentially unstructured document in a CDA in a fire-enabled way that is consistent with U.S. Corps, to which an IG is associated. And we buy ourselves a year to then maybe take the description back to more what it is now, which references structured data, and we'll have an IG out there. The people that I've talked to are like, God, I knew you weren't going to let this go, and we need to do it, but we couldn't do it the way it was described because there ain't no IG. So this point of compromise, yes, we want it. Yes, we need it. The American population needs it, but more closely mirroring the advanced directive observation where it's a reference to structured or unstructured data, it seems to be landing really well. So I would be interested in you guys' thoughts.
Does anybody else have any feedback?
Yeah, so I think that makes sense. And certainly, I agree that there we don't have there isn't an IG out there that's published that directly addresses this. So, um, I think the only real downside to that is that, um, it postpones, it can postpone, um, the actual implementation. I mean, I think we do have vendors, and certainly my directives is one that's very forward leaning and is will probably put this into play long before there's any requirement to do so.
Right.
But that would be the only negative that I would see,
I
and
know.
I do
I
think
know.
that makes sense.
And I argued tooth and nail. I said, you know what? USCDI needs to be the tip of the spear, because vendors have their own roadmaps. My goodness, we get blessed with regulation every time you open a door, right? There's more regulation. There are more requirements that these vendors have, and they're frantically trying to meet them. So we want to keep teeth in this. You know, we have to change the carrot from the stick. Just because people know it's the right thing to do doesn't mean they're going to do it. Okay, great. We'll turn it into a stick. But I got harsh pushback from the powers that be at HL7, and they're like, we got you. We hear you. We know who you are. What IG do you want us to point to?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I felt like PMO was endangered. And so through much discussion, we came up with, hey, you know what? You kind of mirror it after, the advanced directive observation. It's a pointer. I already checked with US Core. I already checked with the CDA management group. They can handle it. They can wrap an unstructured document. They have an IG. Dave, it was the only thing that occurred to all of us who were fighting with us. It was the only thing that we could point to that was an implementable standard. And unfortunately, that is the rule of engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said,
So,
I think, you've included all the right people, and this makes a lot of sense. So,
okay, good. I felt like it was at risk, and
No, I think
I can't see it being
it seems
at
like a
risk.
reasonable solution for where we're at.
Yeah, and then the comment was, once you've got IGs out there and we know daggone good and well people are exchanging structured data as an option, well, changing the description on an existing data element to be more inclusive of the state of the industry, that's a much lighter lift. So, and I'm open to pushback. Believe me, I've been working on this for probably the better part of 2 weeks, and some of the phone calls were not as much fun as this one is.
well, thanks for carrying the torch there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I hope this is helpful.
Oh, I think it is. Yeah. No, this is helps us make sure that we're in line with what is reasonable and what we can push forward with. So I'm going to jump down. I think we just have like two more and then an additional section. I'm going to
Just
see if we can. Yeah, Dave.
James, just before you have me move on, does anybody disagree with that?
No, I just want to say I appreciate Maria walking us through it and giving some additional insight into the rationale. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to jump down to the portable medical order for life-sustaining treatments data element. Since we have portable medical order now, in essence, what's being requested here is to remove this other data element that is going to be captured within the larger portable medical orders. And the rationale down below, it basically indicates that in many jurisdictions, this is already being done, and so it's duplicative. Any questions or comments or feedback about this?
I think that's perfect. If you name it Post, what are you going to do with all the DNRs that are alive and well out there? Or states like Maryland that have a MOLST, and they're like, that doesn't apply to us. We're not a POLST. So
Right.
yeah, I think it creates confusion.
Right. I'm going to take silence as concurrence from everyone else. If there's anything that you wanted to say, please speak up and then we'll go back real quick. The last data element, this is actually a change in the way have structured this provenance comment. Before it had basically said there is a purpose of capture and a rationale, which were very similar. And we were suggesting they take one of those to level 2 and remove the other one. We have changed this to be kind of in alignment with some of the other USCDI, or not USCDI, with the other CMS comments that are advocating for the advancement of the purpose of capture. And we're going to also recommend the advancement of the purpose of capture data element and basically just ignore the rationale and let it continue to live at level 0 and not worry about it. So if this seems a little different than what we had before, that's the reasoning of how we plan to move forward. So, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns or feedback regarding promoting purpose of capture up from level 0 to level 1? Right. Silence is concurrence. I will push down. These are 5 data elements. There's basically a allergy and tolerance data class with the criticality element that has been requested by CMS. And I think, actually, I apologize. Maybe somebody else on the team could help me. Was this from from the work that we're doing with CMS, or is this the work that's being done with the HIT work group by Acumen? I failed to remember where these came from. I apologize.
I don't believe the HIT work group mentioned criticality, but we did advocate for the medications data class information below.
Okay. The question was, are there other folks within the PACIO community that are interested in advocating for these same comments to be pushed forward and advance these data elements? So the comments, the rationale and whatnot are a little bit shorter than what the PACIO comments are above. But criticality was one of the data elements, and then the 4 data elements below, all related to medication, are fairly similar. Actually, 3 of them are very similar, and 1 is slightly different. We have sent this out for everybody to review, so if you have comments, please feel free to email back and let us know. But I'll scroll down real quick through, and if anybody has any comments, please let me know. Yeah, it's this is the one that has 3 data elements all kind of lumped together with a very similar standard or very similar rationale. If anybody has any interest in supporting these comments, I think that's what we're looking to hear at the moment, and then we can determine if we want to put in references to the existing comments or how we'd like to go about that. But we're just looking for support or indications of anything along those lines. Any other feedback?
Hey, James, I have one quick question.
Sure.
For the data elements above this one we're looking at, yeah, for this one. What's the rationale for not referencing the SMPIG? Just curious.
So we haven't. So sorry. So right now, we are working on engaging those folks separately. So this is just kind of whomever's here, but we are specifically looking at doing that. The reason that there's no reference to that on the current rationale and whatnot, this is just what we pulled from the other group that was putting the comments forward. We haven't added any of our normal PACIO style to it, including, referencing those IGs or that IG. Does that help?
Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, and especially since, SMP is on the verge of being published too. So that should add some weight.
All right. Well, we are right at, I think, the end of our time. So I think I might declare victory. We got all the way through all the data elements, and we have had some very good discussion. I appreciate everybody um, going along through that ride with us. And you are still welcome to provide any other feedback that you have via email. Send it along, and we will integrate it with the other comments that we're receiving, and we'll help come up with a good way forward on what comments we should be putting into the final for the final version of USCDI v6.
So James, what's
All
the
right.
next, what are the next steps and what's the timeline? And I guess the question will there be another opportunity to finally review what we're going to send?
Yeah, the timeline was the objective was to get feedback from all of our members for like this round of collecting comments before we reestablish the next set of comment or collecting the feedback from our members before we establish the final set of comments that we'll put forward. The hope to do is to finalize that by the end of the first week of March. So we have some time. So if people want to be able to send email with information back, that's hopefully provides enough time. After we get done with that, we'll push those comments back out to folks as the final set. Then take it to the HIT work group, get their approval or their concurrence, um, and then I think that is it. I might be missing one more review with CMS, but finishing our part up in early March so that we can go through those last final reviews so that we can get the comments in the first week or so of April because the comments are due by April 14th. So we're shooting to be a couple days earlier than that during the work week to finalize everything. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. And so, I think, once we have um, more finalized content, and thank you for everybody for their comments today, um, we can maybe go, just kind of quickly review that with everybody, make sure everybody's, once we have collected everything, make sure everybody on this call is okay with it so that we can vote on it and approve it to have it approved and bring it forward. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, James. Any other
Thanks, all.
comments on this before we move on? All right. That's, I think, concludes our prepared agenda. Anything that anybody else wants to bring up?
This is Bob, and just a huge thank you to all the work that's been done and that you guys continue to do. And as I mentioned in the chat, it did come up at the APTA meeting last week. And a few times was just mentioned about all the work that's being done. So just want to say thank you to all of you. Thanks.
Well, and, basically, thanks to this community. I mean, none of this would happen without this community. So, and certainly, Bob, you've been, a longtime member of that community. So, thank you for all the work that you've been doing and to help get the word out on what PACIO is all about and how we're hopefully moving things forward. So, many thanks. anything else we want to talk about today? All right, I'm not hearing anything, so I will give you 25 minutes back. Thank you very much, and hope you have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.